Hello all, and welcome to another episode of the Brockton Bay Chronicles. My name's Keith. I'm here as always with my longtime friend Andy, and we are continuing his first time reading of Worm by Wildbow. Andy, how's it going? How you doing today, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. Anxious to see how the economic boom is going to occur in Brockton Bay with their new access to a world of untapped resources. But before we get there, we're going to be going over Arc 19, Scourge, Chapter 7, and the final two interludes. And as far as new business, just as a reminder, we're going to be taking a break over the holidays, taking Christmas off. So we'll be coming back in January. And I believe we have some questions and comments to go over.
Yes, we do. And as always, we're grateful to everyone who drops us a note, whether it's on YouTube or on the Reddit. And I will be starting off with a comment from Reddit. This is from contributor Negative Error 2810. And they say, I discovered this podcast a month ago. It's very interesting to hear an analysis about Worm. Thanks, Negative Error. Appreciate you joining us. As we've said to people who've been with us for a while, Andy and I, we're not professional reviewers or writers. Andy dabbles in writing, but this is more of a friendly overview of the story. There are some really good podcasts out there who approach it from the writing standpoint and who can give you, if that's your particular cup of tea and you want to hear someone discuss the writing structure and what Wildbow may or may not have been trying to say on a more detailed level, there are podcasts like the We've Got Worm podcast from Doof Media and several others out there. I think I've stumbled across one or two foreign language ones. So, if that's your cup of tea, you want to go down a little deeper in the rabbit hole, check some of them out. And now switching to YouTube, we hear from regular contributor Johannes E. And it appears Johannes has gone and found us a few more names as far as the clones that Echidna was producing. And Johannes says here, hold up the wiki, and here are the others. And I'm just going to list a couple of the names. He comes up with Apocrypha, which was the Alexandria clone. Carney, which was one for Circus, and I believe this is pronounced Ignis Fatuus for Eidolon. And then one of the others was Scape, and that was one of the Vista clones. And then Johannes closes with, and the duplicator that she caught was apparently named Kudzu, appropriately enough. As for where these names come from, they were in the chapter tags in the original post, i.e. chapters, in the work itself. So they are definitely all Wildbow. And that's correct. Yeah, I keep forgetting about the chapter tags. And yeah, that's where I should have realized these were all Wildbow's original names for these clones. And
Gotcha.
now go ahead, bud.
Oh, yeah, just on that, I make it a point not to read the tags and stuff. I'm worried that I'm going to catch a spoiler in there or something. So that's why I haven't seen these. But these are pretty amazing. And he's already got to come up with, or Wildbow's got to come up with hundreds of names for all these folks. And then he's coming up with alternative names for the clones. It's just another indication of his vivid imagination.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. Now we hear from Megafire 7. A nice little detail here is that even Regent is desperately trying to stop Ignis Fatuus from killing Murden. Didn't think our boy had it in him. Alas, the few moments it bought everyone wasn't enough. So, anyway, the triumvirate has fallen in the eyes of all the heroes. The fight against Echidna starts looking worse now that their leadership has vanished. Morale is plummeting. So who steps up to lead the turnaround in front of all the heroes of America? Our girl Taylor. What do you think of how Taylor's role in these large fights has developed, from Leviathan to the Nine to now? Where do you think it's headed? Andy, what do you think?
Well, I think Taylor and Skitter's maturing process or evolution is pretty remarkable. I think it's similar, and I know we use sports analogies a lot, but you have the kid that's got all sorts of talent, but is younger and is kind of untested, and they're put in a pressure situation and they come through that first time. Maybe it's a pressure situation, but not like, an end of season thing. But the team and the people around them start to realize, all right, well, maybe we can kind of count on this person, and that person's confidence rises a little bit. And then, maybe it happens again, and then maybe it happens in a playoff situation, maybe it goes to a championship situation. And so I think we're seeing something similar with that with Taylor. With Leviathan, she was involved and kind of got, oh my gosh, it's right here, right now, stumbled into the spotlight, so to speak. But with the nine, she was actually having to try to plan and try to put herself in harm's way. And then, of course, in this one, yeah, everybody's kind of wondering what's going to happen. And yeah, she just offers to put her head on the chopping block, so to speak. And so that's pretty amazing. So as far as where do I think it's headed, it's at an interesting inflection point, because we'll see here in the section today that certain things have been accomplished now, and it's kind of like, well, where does it go from here? And things look like there might be, with the portal that's we're seeing opened here, is things are looking a lot better in a lot of ways. But there is this weird power vacuum that's happening or going to be happening. And so that's going to be interesting. She's almost kind of like a benevolent criminal kingpin figure now, where it's, she's not a hero or a heroine, but that as far as villains go, she's not going to just arbitrarily start being violent, and she's going to do her best to try to do the best by the most people. So I could almost see her as kind of a kingmaker, maybe, is for want of a better term, being the person who's trying to help figure out who's the best person to try to, or the best group of people to try to spearhead the parahuman efforts. But I don't see her being the president, if you will, or the queen bee. That doesn't seem like her thing. Now, it may turn out that she just has to be that.
Okay.
But I think I see her more as what would you call it? Like a grand vizier type character, rather than the royalty itself.
Cool. That's pretty intriguing possibility. And finally, we hear from another new contributor, Nick Kaler. Nick, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. If you loved Worm, I highly recommend Curveball by C.B. Wright. The hero in that one is like Tattletale mixed with Captain America. Andy, are you familiar with that work?
I'm not, but the description is very intriguing. Captain is one of my favorites, and then Tattletale's really grown on me as we've been reading through this. So that would be a really neat combo, and I'll have to go check it out.
Very cool indeed. All right, folks. Thanks very much for the contributions. And before we hit that review, Andy, you did just say something about Tattletale having grown on you. I'm going to put you on the spot. We didn't discuss this in the pre-show. Tell us how your feelings about Tattletale as a character have evolved. I find that possibility of what you might say pretty intriguing.
Well, I really liked her at the start as the one who was trying to kind of befriend Taylor or help her to feel like she was part of something, bring her into the group. But then we had that twist where it's like, oh, wait, you knew all along this was going on. And so then it became like more of a manipulation thing. And you wondered, well, how much of it was legit and how much of it was, oh, here's another great tool to add to the coil arsenal,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'll just make her feel at home as much as I can. And that I kind of felt that way for a while until the big reveal after the Endbringer event and came out that Taylor was trying to be a double agent kind of, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody was pissed at her. And then Tattletale was the one that kind of, she was able to reconnect with. So I think it really kind of seesawed, right? I was,
Sure.
hey, yay, Tattletale. And then, oh man. And then, okay, yeah, she seems cool. And then through the whole part about the nine, Tattletale was continually trying to come up with ways to make things work, but also seemed to be kind of, as we'll read coming up here, kind of reckless, and she ends up getting her face sliced open, and you're like, dang, that's
Yeah.
got to be super hard for a young woman. And, that's got to be just something horrible to deal with. But then, as we'll see tonight, she really has been, and it makes sense. I imagine her just lying awake in bed trying to go to sleep and having all these things trying to integrate in her head, and
Mm-hmm.
pulling on all these different threads and having to tell herself, all right, I can't follow that too far. But yeah, she's doing her best to grasp the whole big picture and trying to do what Taylor does, trying to do the best for everybody, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really come to admire her for that, as challenging as that must be, because it'd be very easy for her to use that information and just take care of herself or the people she most wants to take care of, and let everybody else go to the wolves, so to speak.
All right. Cool, man. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And now we'll start our review, picking up with chapter 7, heading toward the end of this arc. We're with the heroes as they're dealing with Echidna. Everybody's laying into her as best they can. Ranged fire. They're calling down, I believe one of them is calling down projectiles. I think that astrologer cape. So they've got Echidna pinned down. This is right after Clock Blocker and Skitter pull that razor wire trick on her.
Right.
Oh, yeah, the mental imagery. I mean, yay, Skitter, cool move. Yeah, yay, Wildbow for giving me nightmare fuel. Yay, thank you. Anyway, how'd you like this thing with Clock Blocker? He's been healed up now, and then he shows up next to Taylor, and it's like, hey, what else? What else can I do? Do you want to repeat the maneuver? Hey, and then he has that kind of lighthearted moment. How'd you feel about this moment between the two of them, given the context of what we saw from Clock Blocker when he was with Miss Yamada?
Well, I think Wildbow does a great job here of capturing in a microcosm what's kind of going on with everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the revelations that have happened, the foundation has just crumbled, right? All this
Yeah.
stuff that everybody thought they knew is now just flushed down the toilet, basically. And so the natural reaction at that point, when you feel like all the things you counted on, you can't count on anymore, is, and especially in the midst of a firefight like this, is to try to find another ally, try to form another group, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
strength in numbers, there's protection there. And Clockblocker has just seen Skitter put her head in the mouth of the lion, so to speak, and counted on him to help.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a natural alliance now. It's kind of like, whoa, I had no idea that you would feel up to doing that, one, and that you would include me and think that two of us could be like the Cape Crusaders here. And so I think it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, when the rug gets pulled out from you, you grab onto whatever you need to try to keep standing. And there's definitely, I think, a note of admiration here from Clock Blocker. And yeah, he's just trying to. It's definitely awkward because, yeah, not that
Sure.
long ago it was pretty rough. And so he's trying to kind of patch it up and like, hey, what else can we do? We're a
Right.
great team now. Let's hit her again.
Yes. We want to note that this is right after Eidolon got freed during that whole this fake surrender from Skitter. And so he's gone up to help Legend in battling the Alexandria clone. So he's taken them out. Yeah, it says here another circle exploded across the sky. And Alexandria clone 2 was down. Legend and Eidolon descended in Echidna's direction, keeping a healthier distance. Yeah, good job, because we couldn't pull off that Skitter maneuver again. And if they got caught again, then that would just really be bad. Tattletale shows up with a few friends because she had shown up with the travelers, not the travelers, pardon me, Fault Line's crew, I believe it is. What did you make of her interjecting herself between Skitter and Clock Blocker at that moment? Did you read anything into that? Am I reading too much into that? I mean, Tattletale's power is looking at body language and
Mm-hmm.
perhaps how Clock Blocker approached Skitter. Maybe she's seeing something that Skitter herself doesn't necessarily see.
I hadn't thought about that, but I could see that. I saw it more as just Tattletale needing to get the next steps in the plan rolling,
Okay.
and that maybe Clockbarker had kind of done his part. He wasn't involved in the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to move this along. But there could have been something where, yeah, Clockblocker had designs on Skitter outside of just trying to saw Echidna in half. And I was like, hold on a minute. Gru's not here. All right. Just step back. That's definitely a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, here I found the paragraph I wanted to read. It says here, I was a little caught off guard to see the side of Clock Blocker, or more that he was showing it to me. Was it humor as a coping mechanism, or attempted humor as a coping mechanism to be more on target? I could believe it from the guy who'd chosen Clock Blocker as his cape name, but to let me see anything other than the hard-nosed defender of the peace was something different. A show of trust, letting his guard down some. I really did like that paragraph because it kind of summed up what I was wondering. I think
Hmm.
I'm with Skitter in what's going on here. And in the second read, even more so. And I'm wondering, was there in the shadow of, as I said, what happened in the Jessica Yamada interlude, where we saw that other side of Clock Blocker, and he essentially is the other side of the coin from Skitter. So that's a long
Hmm.
way of me saying that, yeah, I really dug this, and perhaps I'm reading more into it now than is really there.
It's so hard. I mean, being in this kind of intense situation where just a minute ago they're like, are we all going to die?
Sure.
And they're somewhat used to that, right? They've been through Endbringer events, they've been through the nine. So that's not a new thing. But then to have this other thing
Mm-hmm.
where in that very next paragraph, you know, he probably felt he had his whole future laid out for him, a career
Yeah.
in the wards, transitioning to the protectorate with funds, fame, and every side benefit, a piece of paper. All of a sudden, all that's gone. And so it's one thing to feel like you're part of a team and this is our mission and everything. But now it's like, all right, the team just got dissolved. We still got to deal with this, but I really like being part of a team. I need that stability. So, but as a teenager, that stability is often tied up with being romantically connected with somebody, and
Mm-hmm.
that it's me and my significant other against everybody else because they're all messed up. So I could see it either way.
I'm glad you brought up the fact about how essentially the bottom is dropped out of not just Clock Blocker's future, but all the good guys. The ramifications of the reveal of just how dirty the triumvirate is, that ramification cannot be overstated. So we'll get into that as we go a little bit further on. Yes. So Tattletale comes up to Skitter, and they're going to talk about what they're going to need to do to open up this door, this to kick the dimensional door off its hinges, so to speak. Yes, this is Tattletale perhaps being reckless, perhaps solving a problem we don't know just yet. But it was a unique thing. She got Labyrinth to create a structure. We know Labyrinth can delve into different realities, and we knew that Scrub was had the ability to shunt matter between realities, between worlds, and that combination, boom! Next thing you know, I like the description. It essentially sounds like that chapel, that structure that Labyrinth was creating, went up in a puff of smoke, and then poof! You've got this eerie void leading to another dimension.
Yeah, this was a great description. And the way Tattletale put it together was really neat. And that, Scrub's able to do this kind of thing, but Labyrinth, even though sometimes she's hard to interact with, has this special ability to be able to connect these other places. So putting the two of them together,
Mm-hmm.
you almost get like some kind of wormhole type possibility going on. And you hear it in the dialogue from Labyrinth. I don't know that Scrub has any dialogue, but Labyrinth seems genuinely excited about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
That it's starting to help things coalesce in her own mind, and helping her grasp more what's going on, so it doesn't feel like things are just out of control in her head all the time.
Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let me ping pong a little bit. Once the portal came open, once they punched that hole through reality, Alexandria was not happy about it, and she was not wrong to be concerned. And even Faultline acknowledged that.
Mm-hmm.
It was still a pretty dangerous situation for Tattletale. Alexandria had her by the throat.
Poor Tattletale, man. First it's a gun in the mouth, and
Dude,
now it's
yeah.
being choked by Alexandria. Yeah, it's not been a good day.
No, she's just out there. Just, I guess that's just how she rolls, you know. And later on, we do get a little bit of much valued and deserved. I think we've earned the insight into her mind that we get later on from.
Yeah, I think so. And we've seen when different folks have interacted with Cauldron and that kind of thing that they are going to another dimension. They're going to an alternate Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Tattletale was spot on when she said if there was going to be a war with Earth Aleph, it would have happened by now.
Right.
There would have been something going on. So these are very calculated risks, I think. And she's been analyzing and putting this stuff together in her head, and has come up with this scenario. And from the way it's described, that Skitter is able to tell that Alexandria stiffens for a
Yes.
moment, you can tell that Alexandria wasn't just worried about a risk. She was worried about specific risks to her or stuff she was involved in. And so she's tries later on in this section to act like she's still altruistic and still doing the what's best for everybody, but there's still plenty of self-serving going on, I think, in her, Alexandria, that is.
Yes, there is. The heroes bring the remaining members of the Travelers forward: Sundancer, Ballistic, Oliver, and Genesis. The doorway's open now, and Tattletale's like, "Hey, you guys want to go home? Sundancer, do your thing and take out Echidna, and you guys can go home." Poor Sundancer. I mean,
Hmm.
how do you just not ache for this girl? How do you just not feel just sorrow for what she's been through this whole thing?
Well, and I would say for all of them, I mean,
Yeah.
going all the way back to what happened to him with the Seamerg and the quarantine and all that stuff, it's just been uh, worst vacation trip ever. uh, they said, see the other Earth. You'll love it. What was I thinking? But yeah, to have to go kill your friend. And they
Hmm.
try to tell her, they try to get through to her on a logical level that that's not her friend anymore.
Yeah.
That's Echidna now. Noelle is gone.
Hmm.
But it's one thing to hear that, but that doesn't touch on the emotional thing. But I think when Sundancer finally got close and Echidna started showing her true colors, it wasn't about, hey, you're my friend, hey, I'll
Hmm.
stop or anything. It was all like, I haven't killed them all yet. Come on,
Yeah.
it's too early. It's like, oh, all right. Well, maybe maybe you do need to be put down. Maybe my friend is gone. But you're
Yeah.
right. That must have been a horrible thing. But I was cheering inside because we finally got to see Sundancer light it up and really,
That's right. You've been after this for like 4 arcs now, haven't you?
oh my gosh, yeah, doing a little barbecue there in downtown Brockton Bay. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry, man.
Nothing left but some charred bones and a foot. That was,
God. Yeah, okay. All right. But back to Sundancer's sorrow.
oh well, yeah, all right, emotional stuff, fine.
So she does it. Skitter and Tattletale are right. No, Sundancer, your friend who you grew up with is gone. She wouldn't want to live like this, and that finally spurs her on. Did you like the moment where Alexandria walked, or not walked? Well, there was that one scene where she popped Echidna with the girder, which would be kind of cool to see. And then there was the other scene when Echidna was about to break free because of Sundancer's sun melting the ice and rock that she was encased in. Alexandra flew in to hold her in place, and she took the power of the sun and survived.
That was pretty wild. Yeah, I did not see that one coming, but it makes sense. Alexandria knows her capabilities, and she's looking for a little redemption too, right? She knows that she's looking like the wolf in sheep's clothing at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and
Because yeah,
she's
they're
trying
talking
to
about crimes against humanity. I'm sorry, but yeah, go ahead, make your point.
exactly, yeah. I mean, they're human experimentation. That's just
Mm-hmm.
about as messed up as you can get, and
Yeah.
so, and then to claim that you're the protector of the free world, basically, but you're obviously not protecting some folks because you're giving them black market possible power pills. So she's going in there thinking, I'm guessing that that'll make her appear more self-sacrificing, more
Mm.
willing to do whatever it takes. That she is still that shining example of trying to protect others and help no matter what. But it's a little bit lame. If you know you're invincible, then
Mm-hmm.
jumping in and just having your clothes melt off, that is just, yeah, we knew you were invincible.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, then the travelers go home. Sundancer, after taking care of business, she strips off her costume, walks through the portal, and that's that. Ballistic and the others follow, and Ballistic pauses and says to the heroes, "What about Trickster?" And he's told, I think a Chevalier says, "Yeah, we've got Trickster in custody. He's going to the bird cage." And Ballistic's like, "Good, we don't want him." And then off he goes. So that's the end of them, as far as we know for this moment.
Uh, but before you move on, though, I think there was one key thing here. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of this whole story, but definitely this section is all about kind of the greater good,
Mm.
or there's no clear, this is the good versus evil, right? There's shades of gray. And so Sundancer wants to know that there's no other capes in there, that
Right.
Noelle doesn't have anybody else, but they know that there are a few in there that they couldn't get out. And so Tattletale's about to tell her, and and
Yeah.
Skitter sends a bug down her throat to shut her up and says, "Yeah, no, it's all clear. They got the last ones out," and everybody goes with it.
Right.
And so, as much as the folks have a total right to be pissed off about what the protectorate has been pulling, and Alexandria in particular, and
Mm-hmm.
Cauldron. There's always this, everybody's faced with these kind of choices. And sometimes you do have to just bite your tongue and say, all right, for the greater good, Echidna's got to go down. And if Sundancer has to believe that nobody else is going down with her, then we're going to let her believe that, even though we know different. So just wanted to point that.
Yes, thank you, because I was moving right past that, and that's a very critical part of the story in this moment. Tattletale talks to Fault Line, and Fault Line basically gets Labyrinth to change the channel on the portal, and so oh yeah, and how pissed off are you if you're Fault Line? I mean, you already hate Tattletale, okay, and now the realization that this portal could be a gateway to another world, an empty world full of resources, and Brockton Bay is going to be the hub, and the Undersiders are going to control that hub. Aren't you just feeling like you've been shortchanged just a little bit?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, wait a minute, you loaned me, or you asked me to borrow $10, and you went and bought a winning lottery ticket with it, and now you're saying I'll pay you back the $10. It's like, yeah, that's just not. Oh man, yeah, and like you said, on top of it, they're not the best of friends. So
Yeah, no.
yeah, Fault Line's got to be pretty roasted over that.
Yeah, but she does get Labyrinth to change the channel, as I said. And so now, instead of Alexandria's fear about a war with Earth LF, or Fault Line's concern about the Endbringers finding their way through the portal to a populated world, they find a peaceful world that's empty. I like that description where Labyrinth says she's looking around and she can't even find anything but animals on any side of the ocean. So she's, snapshotting the entire planet looking for people, and it's just animals. Again, nice bit of imagery from Wildbow.
Definitely, I think it's just so cool because it again, I think it really shows that Labyrinth is starting to come into her own a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that, oh wait, this is what this information overload was meaning. This is kind of how it works. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can filter this. I can see, I can
Mm-hmm.
choose to look now over there or over here. It's not just all one flood of imagery. And so I can picture this look of wonder on her face as it's
Mm.
kind of like, oh wow, this, yeah. Oh, all the way on the other, it's just only animals, and I can see them all.
Mm-hmm. Moving a little bit further down into the chapter, we get another, as you alluded to, another greater good moment from Alexandria, where she talks about how most of what happened here can't be disseminated to the rest of the public, because the PRT, as an idea anyway, if not in actual execution, as an idea, it needs to stand. Otherwise, civilians will possibly turn against the ideas of capes, or there will be distrust among capes, because did you actually trigger because you were, dropped out of a
Mm.
tree when you were a kid, or are you lying to me? Did you drink it from a vial, kind of thing? And then we get that moment, that statement about how, yeah, the PRT interacts with other cape organizations around the world. So there's a lot at stake here.
There is, but this is a straw man argument.
Mm.
Alexandria is not a prophet. She's just assuming things.
Mm-hmm.
But we see this time and again with governments where they try to say what we saw with our own government. We know that things happened that shouldn't have happened before Richard Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they talk about all the hijinks that was going on with Kennedy, for instance. But there was this agreement that nobody should know about it, or else the world would collapse, and all faith in government would be lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I think things have definitely changed, and in some ways for the worse after Nixon, after kind of the media had the gloves pulled off, if you will, and felt like they could really dig in and report on things. And giving the media free reign like that is not necessarily a good thing. I think that's been abused in some ways as well. But the world didn't end. America didn't all of a sudden become not the leader of the free world. It's hard to say that things are better,
Mm-hmm.
but things aren't near as bad as people would have had us believe back in the day, where, okay, no, you can't report on this. The media is not allowed to say anything about X. If you think back to what was it? Was it Calvin Coolidge that had a stroke in
Oh, right.
office? And basically everybody else was running the government for like months or something.
Yeah, his wife was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but nobody was allowed to report that because, oh my gosh, what would happen? And so I think her saying that everything's going to collapse if the protectorate is outed is it's kind of fear mongering. Yes, things are
Mm.
going to be bad. Things are going to be destabilized, but parahumans will still have their powers. You still have, what do they call it? Like a crystallizing enemy out there. The Endbringers are still out there. And so you're going to have to unite to survive. It's just like movies where aliens show up. The whole world's squabbling, everything's falling apart, but let the aliens show up and all of a sudden everybody's
Mm-hmm.
buddy buddy because we got to get them out of here. So you would still have all that. All those dynamics are still there, whether the protectorate is outed or not. This is about her just trying to maintain what power she can, I think. And
Hmm.
so I agree with the other capes where they're kind of like, well, I don't know about this.
Mm-hmm.
So I disagree with Skitter a little bit, but I think Skitter has a great point in that whether we should out them or not, or tell the truth or not, it's best not to do it in anger.
Right.
Sit on it for a bit. Let's try to come up with a plan. Think it over. Think how best we can do this, because the pieces will have to be picked up in some way. And rarely is it going to be good if somebody just goes off with a megaphone and starts yelling from the rooftops.
How did you like that speech from our once upon a time shy, uncertain of herself, now warlord and queen of Brockton Bay? How did you
I
like that moment from her?
liked it a lot. And I think this was a perfect time for her. People had seen her walk out by
Mm,
herself, like I said earlier, put her head in the lion's mouth. And so she's definitely got some cred.
right.
Now, the Cape folks point out that, well, it's not like your employer that just turned out to be the one that was supplying Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
don't work for them. So this doesn't stick to you directly. You don't have to go to work tomorrow, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
and think if that person that told you they had the trigger event falling out of a tree in their yard really got it out of a bottle. And Skitter acknowledges that that's for sure the truth, but she circles back and says, regardless of that, you're totally right, but it'd be better if y'all just think about it and sleep on
Yeah. Miss Militia, she's got kind of
it.
hard with Alexandria too, rightfully so. I mean, she tries to keep things cool, but she's not on Alexandria's side here. Nobody is.
Well, and that's the hardest thing when you have collapse like this, is that as the kind of nameless folks who were yelling out from the crowd pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
they've pinned their hopes on the integrity of their leadership. It's you're part of this great organization, and you're using all your things. You're sometimes putting aside your personal stuff. You're going along with orders you don't agree with, all to support this great organization, only to find that it's rotten at the core. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I was just doing stuff I really didn't want to do to support you when all the
Mm-hmm.
time you were screwing us on the backside. So yeah, Miss Militia is like kind of like Captain America, right? Just
Yeah.
the true blue, run through a wall for you kind of person. But the expectation is that, all right, as the one who's giving me orders, you're going to be just the same. And it turns out they're not. Then it's very big betrayal.
Yeah. So Skitter says her piece. She wishes the assembled group of heroes good luck, calls Atlas, hops on him, and then heads off to her lair. Yeah, I want to read this one section as she's getting ready to fly away. It says, I saw Legend hovering in the air. His fists were clenched, and he was looking down. He looked agonized. If I had any idea what to say, I might have approached him. I didn't. With a command, I directed Atlas away from the discussion that could decide history, maybe even the fate of the world. Pretty intense last sentence in that section.
Well, this, yeah, touches on what we were talking about before. From being in the moment, I think it can feel that way
Mm-hmm.
because there's been this huge betrayal and the the house divided could not stand kind of thing. But at the end of the day, the Endbringers are still out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's these existential threats. And so people are going to step up, just like they did with Echidna. They weren't in sync. They weren't fighting as a team anymore. There wasn't as good a coordination, but everybody was still there. Nobody just said, I'm out and left because of what was revealed. So I think this is a bit of teenage exaggeration, maybe.
Okay.
That I don't think it's really gonna. Well, I mean, it's not like it's life or death for the world. That's how I'm reading, I guess, fate
Okay.
of the world. I mean, the world is going to be different for sure, and we'll see that play out at the beginning of it, at least in the next couple sections. But yeah, this is a little bit.
A little bit of
I was focused
hyperbole.
a little bit. Yeah, I was focused more on Legend. I mean, Legend.
Oh, yes.
He had found out that people were lying to him,
Right.
and he had been on the point of trying to dig into it more, and then it all just blew up in his face, and he must be thinking, dang, I should have pushed harder. I should have. What could I have done differently to try to make this not happen this way?
Yeah. So he's getting splattered with this stink by association.
Right. And he was peripheral to it, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he was, but they don't know that and Alexandria tells the truth that he wasn't in on all of it, but he had inklings, and he had
Mm-hmm.
figured out through the software that people were just lying to him. And so he was on the point, I think, of trying to dig into it and to fix it. And he didn't do it fast enough. And that must be agonizing.
Mm-hmm. And so as we're moving toward the end of the chapter, we get a scene back at Skitter's lair. She's chilling. She's got Atlas. She's feeding him a much needed meal. Kids are out hanging out in her area. And then Lisa comes over. And the two of them have a really good heart to heart. And Lisa finally opens up and shares with Taylor her story about her trigger event, tragic story of her brother, why she was being so, what Skitter and we determined to be why she was being so reckless, because she felt she had to push herself to she was trying to help Taylor in a way that she couldn't. She felt she couldn't help her brother. And B, the idea of proving to herself she could still be the smartest kid in the room, I guess.
Yeah, this was a real interesting reveal, and very nuanced, lots of different perspectives in there. But yeah, it gets down to Lisa had inklings about her brother.
Mm-hmm.
She was seeing things. She hadn't triggered yet, but we've talked about how the trigger tends to play into what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have better insight than others, and Lisa was picking up on some stuff about her brother and didn't really say anything about it because of how they had distanced themselves a little bit, which typically happens or often happens, I should say, with siblings in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then she's in another situation where she sees somebody who's struggling and seems to be maybe losing their grip a little bit or sliding the wrong way. And so she feels like she's got to try to rescue them and gets, yeah, a little reckless, a little desperate to do that.
Her dad isn't winning any awards.
No, no, not at all. Yeah. And I thought that that was an interesting point, and I don't think that gets brought up enough. I think they've had it a couple times in like X-Men type movies or
Mm-hmm.
where you either have revulsion and just get away from me, or you have exploitation. How can we
Mm.
use this power of yours to somehow better our existence? And yeah, the dad was definitely in that second camp. And because of Tattletale's powers, you could tell it was totally fake.
Yeah.
And so she says, I stole more money than or I took more money than I should have. I'm like, well, I don't know. You were the kid and you were being exploited. I think any amount you took would be okay in my book, but you know, that's just me.
Yeah, I'm irritated that well, even if she noticed that her brother was not himself, even though they had kind of a distant relationship as siblings. I mean, she's the kid. And then
Yeah.
for her family, for the adults, okay, maybe in pain to lash out a little bit, but then to belabor it once as time moves on and to be calling her stupid and whatever other names to drive her to a trigger event. I mean, that does not speak well of them. But anyway, um,
Well, along those lines, though, how often has a kid said something about a sibling and the parents just played it off
mhm.
and not done anything? She could have told them. I'm guessing she could have said something about it and they would have done anything. And so, yeah, that makes it even less savory or more unsavory, I guess is a better way of putting it. But yeah, her family sucked. But I feel bad for Rex for sure. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, she believes that she had a trigger event one night, and then not knowing what. Yeah, when you imagine the nightmare she had to have been having when in order to
mm,
prompt that trigger, and because she was being mentally, um,
abused.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's what prompted her power to manifest as a mental power.
Mm,
Hence she's a thinker. So yeah, as we're heading down toward the end of the chapter, and the two girls exchange a much needed hug, really cementing that bond of friendship between them. Yeah, I know you love this last sentence where it says, "I hopped down from the railing, walking around, made my way to Lisa, wrapped my arms around her. She returned the hug. I crumpled the papers in my fist." So
mm.
we still haven't gotten an idea of what those on those papers, and you've been after that for a while.
I have been, yeah, but I thought we were going to get it this time, but no such luck.
And now we're ready to move on into the bonus interlude number 2, Parahumans Online. Now I think I'm going to let you run wild on this one. Let's take that overview from 34,000 feet, and let's ping pong around here and see which particular person who's commenting on the board, see what you think of them, and see where the conversation goes. But we're starting out, we are following the person who's logged in as XX Boyd Cowboy XX. What did you think of this as a message delivery system from Wildbow?
Well, I've got to be brutally honest. This was not fun to read. And I guess it comes from just experiencing this too often in real life where I hear about something after it's been going on for a while. I get on a forum
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like there's all these forum police and rules and just a lot of kind of people trying to think they're big stuff because they're in the know on things. And so that made this very cringy for me to read. But end of rant on that. Forums in general provide lots of great information, but they also can provide misinformation, and it can be really hard to tell the difference,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're coming in the middle somewhere. But this is interesting because it is showing the perspective from people who weren't there, and it's also showing the perspective of kind of what happened in the aftermath of those events, but kind of only what the public was allowed to see, or
Mm-hmm.
how information was restricted. Right at the end of the fight, Alexandria was saying, "Hey, this can't get out," and Skitter was saying, "All right, let's try not to fly off the handle here. Let's have some damage control, if you will, spin doctoring, however you want to call it."
Sure.
And it seems like they were successful because as you're reading through this, there's bits and pieces, but a lot of it is conjecture. And as typically happens in these kind of things, people spiral off onto other stuff. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, great. We don't know what's going on with the protectorate, and when's the next Endbringer event due? Simulations say maybe this time. They get talking about how old is Alexandria,
Right.
and so there's all this kind of bouncing around.
Did you like
I thought
the?
it was. Oh,
This was
go ahead.
another case where Wildbow's using this to give us the calendar, if you will. We last time we I
Mm,
think the last example of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, may have been the Jessica Yamada interlude where we got that calendar from her, and day
mm.
one it was this ward, and then talk to that ward, and then this cape, and we followed the timeline of the events leading up to right before the echidna thing went down. This seems like another way, Wildbow, another opportunity for where he's taken to give us the calendar of events.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I think there is a lot of kind of just flying down the mountain at breakneck speed
Mm-hmm.
in a runaway vehicle as we're reading through the battle scenes. And you know Skitter is caught, Skitter escapes, Skitter goes over here, now this is
Mm-hmm.
going on, and so it's nice to get this kind of reset, if you will, to show this is going on. And then, as I said, it's also kind of pointing out what the aftermath was, that, oh,
Right.
so and so is stepping down, but these people, oh, should it be Eidolon? Well, not just the strongest one should be the leader. So, and I also like the little things that Wildbow throws in, like he's got an entry here where cauldron is spelled but with an asterisk in it because all these forums have certain words that are banned, and so people have to
Mm-hmm.
come up with tricky ways of slipping in there so people know what you're talking about. Yeah, and then there's a little bit in here where somebody gets worried that somebody else is a creeper or
Mm-hmm.
a stalker, and then somebody else is faking that they're a girl, and so yeah,
Oh,
it's
right. Yeah. Okay. That was toward the end. We can touch on that. Did you pick up when it was looking at that section where they were trying to verify people who were actually at Brockton Bay? Did you catch on Char met in person, had the best meal I've had in weeks on the boardwalk? This was
I
the one
did
that
see
this
that,
was
but yeah,
one of the ones who was confirmed.
confirmed. Yeah, I see it there.
Um, any idea who that might be? I can tell you, I'm almost positive it has to be because that's not going to be any kind of a spoiler. It has to be Charlotte.
Charlotte is what I was thinking. Yeah, but okay.
I mean,
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. I mean, if it's any place that's going to be, as we later find out, 5 stars, it's going to be Shea Skitter. so
Yeah,
so of course Charlotte's running things for her. She's the front face of the organization.
nice.
And without wanting to cover ground you've already trod, we do get that verification, that whole thing there where they're like trying to, hey, we want to make sure of who's actually been there and why, blah, blah, blah. Then we get the notification about Legend leaving the Protectorate, and
Hmm.
we don't know why. The official word hasn't come down, but then, oh my God, what's going to happen the next Endbringer event? Is the Protectorate who's going to be the leader, as you said? And then we get some interesting stuff about Eidolon. reticence about him personally from some of the folks who the spouses of Capes who've interacted with him in other events. Do you think that's going to be a reoccurring thing? Are we going to get more of a well, I guess we did have that one personal interaction with Jessica Yamada. You think we'll see any more about that from him, about his personal side, his civilian, if he has a civilian face?
That's a good question. And it seems like the Protectorate's really trying to do damage control.
Mm-hmm.
And in this same section, we see Weld is here on the forum as a verified cape and is trying to figure out or be politically correct about talking about things.
Mm-hmm.
That he doesn't harbor any animosity toward the Protectorate. So I think there is going to be more quote unquote humanization, or hey, these are parahumans, but they're still just like you and me. They just have powers kind of thing.
Okay.
And that, I think that's a good thing. You don't want, there's reasons for privacy and for protection that things have to stay a certain way in certain situations. But
Yeah,
I
but I
think,
mean, do you think that Wildbow is going to show us the civilian face of Eidolon? That's where I was going.
oh, I got you. Um, yeah, I bet he does.
Okay. Now, before I forget to switch gears slightly, Weld's section here, the irregulars. What do you make of that?
Well, there definitely is a word on the street, right, about
Mm-hmm.
the cauldron, and there's been lots of speculation about that prior to this, and so there's probably a little bit more that's been leaking out, and there's definitely recognition that some of the folks are not just wearing a suit,
Mm-hmm.
that they're way physically modified, and
Right.
Weld's a prime example, and so irregulars I think is kind of a cool name for it. Back in the old days in military parlance, that was when you had maybe a group that was formed out of the remnants of other regiments or
Mm-hmm.
different, and they weren't all just longbowmen or whatever. They were just kind of a ragtag group. And so it's got a certain cachet to it, I think, without being like the weirdos or what.
Yeah.
Um,
Irregulars is a I mean, case 53s unite and we're the irregulars. So yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of cool. Now, moving on, we do get the speculation about what's going to happen during the next Endbringer fight. One of the posters is like, yeah, I'm not counting on given the news of all these people stepping down and leaving. I don't think the protectorate as a whole is going to be able to deal with the next Endbringer visitation. It's going to go really bad. I don't know. Is that person? Does he have cause for to be less optimistic? Who knows? I mean,
Well,
we know that maybe.
yeah, I think the initial response will be worse,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to have that central coordinating authority. But I think all the all the capes like Miss Militia, the ones who are there kind of mission driven people, they're going
Yeah.
to try to stay connected to folks like Dragon
Mm-hmm.
and just say, all right, well, give us any warning you can. Let's just set up a shadow network. We can't shirk our responsibility of trying to protect the world or protect the United States. So let's
Mm-hmm.
try to build something that we can keep each other informed, and you can let us know any kind of early warning system. Just like if you don't have enough sentries and you're out in the field, then you string up a bunch of tin cans on a wire, or like back in the Mission Impossible thing, Ethan Hunt breaks a light bulb and scatters the glass in the hallway so that he'll hear it crunching when somebody tries to come in because he's got to
Sure.
sleep. So they're going to do something, but it's probably not going to be near as timely or coordinated. But I don't think people are turning their back on this and just saying whatever. I do think it's kind of funny that somebody feels like oh, well, don't go to Greece. It's like, well, what? How do you do? Obviously, it's a bunch of islands. It has a lot greater chance of totally going underwater or having something bad happen.
Hmm.
But, they make the point where would be safe.
Right.
They say Alaska. I'm like, no, Alaska wouldn't be safe either. I mean, it's got a huge coastline. There's plenty bad stuff that could go there. So unless you're going way in the interior somewhere, but
Right. Exactly. It's not like well, that may not be a good analogy to Newfoundland, but yeah. The section about the state of the villains in Brockton Bay was pretty cool. That one poster copied and pasted from another thread, and then we get all the ratings on the best places to stay in the in the bay.
Yelp for for the undersiders. I was cracking up when I was reading this
Uh-huh.
part. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, but people will. I'm surprised he didn't include a poll here. If you were going to have to hang out with one of the undersiders for a day, who would you pick?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. Who would it be? I mean, heck, man, if it was Imp, you wouldn't even know she was around. So,
There you go. Yeah. How did I eat $100 worth of food? I don't even drink. What are all these cocktails on here? What's going on?
uh, yeah. So let me think here. Yeah, moving a little further down, we get the person who wants to be a hint person for a bitch. Okay, cool. We get the private messages from G String Girl. This is where things right before Void Cowboy logs off the forum. He's reading these messages from G String Girls and beginning to wonder. I don't know what's driving her. She just looking for a friend to computer game with.
Well, yeah, it's so hard to stay
Mm-hmm.
because it starts off with, and that's the problem with these kind of forums, right? Is that, and back in the day, you and I adopted pseudonyms and
Sure.
pretended to be other people as a way of joking around back in college. And now we picked names that everybody knew were from a comic strip, so they knew they were fake and that we were just acting out stuff from Bloom County. But you see something like G String Girl, that's gonna get a young man probably thinking a
Hmm.
certain way. And then when all of a sudden they're acting different, then the person might feel like they're in a catfishing situation. And
Yeah.
so it's just like middle-aged pervert trying to get into your pants.
Yeah.
But in light of the stuff with the case 53s that's been so involved in this recently, there's this message where it says there's a reason I can't send a photo, but I
Hmm.
don't want to have to explain. That's where my mind went, was that maybe this was some kind of minor parahuman, with not necessarily great powers or anything,
Okay.
but obviously they don't want to share a picture of themselves because they didn't turn out so good. So
Interesting.
that's what I was thinking.
Okay. And then we get to the section about who'd you lose. Now, okay, I'm gonna plead ignorance here. This is where we find out, I think, that Vista is alive. I'm pretty sure we didn't know that. We didn't get
Yeah.
confirmation of that during the Echidna battle. So I was doing the math and I was listening to the audio, and we get her post here, and this is after the Echidna event. So Vista survived, and somebody in the comments, you folks know this, Tony, if you're listening to this, smack me down in the comments and let me know if I should have known that or not. But yeah, she puts her post in there. Yeah, Vista verified Cape, and then she lists the people that she's lost: Gallant, Aegis, Battery, Arms Master, Dauntless, Velocity, Glory Girl, Browbeat, and one of her family members. Another character, another young girl who's just, boy, she's really been through it. Last time we saw Vista, actually was again the Miss Yamada bonus interlude. Boy, there's a lot tied back to that, isn't it?
Yeah, there really is. Now, wasn't Vista the first one that Echidna cloned.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought she was a goner after that too. So I'm a little surprised and happily surprised that she's on here. So that's good. But yeah, the Jessica Yamada was a very kind of central to the story
Hmm.
interlude.
Yeah. And then as we're heading toward the very end of the interlude, there's the discussion, the post about Skitter. Yeah, just who is this Skitter person? What's she about in her private life? And Void Cowboy is reading that. Yeah, there was that section. One of the posters was like, "Hey, isn't it interesting how we're talking about the Skitter like we used to talk about Kaiser or I forget who else?" But this whole thread here is what gets Void Cowboy, aka Greg, that gets his brain working,
Mm.
and he thinking to himself, "A woman of above average height or a tall teenager," he mumbled to himself. "North End, lives in the area. Personality, vicious, smart, tough, a little unhinged." And then, boom, Taylor Hebert. He does the math and comes up with that one name. And then he recounts another scene where we see Taylor through somebody else's eyes, all the way back to that first arc where he remembers how she looked, all tense and all the indignities she had to suffer through. Another good moment here.
This is really good. Yeah. And I think this kind of scene is probably repeated tons of times with people on these forums, and
Mm-hmm.
99% of them are wrong because there's so many similarities, and generalities that it's kind of like because they just say woman of average height. Well,
Mm.
okay, that's half the women, right? So
Sure.
the vicious, smart, tough, a little unhinged, that narrows it down quite a bit. But I'm sure half the kids in different high schools in the area knew somebody that was like that.
Okay.
I can think of a girl from my high school that was tough and a
Hmm.
little unhinged. She wasn't very smart. I don't know if she was vicious, but anyway, you get the point.
Sure.
But yeah, it's neat the way he starts then connecting the dots and really starting to dig into it. And yeah, it's a neat insight, and he brings some insight at the end here where he says, "Have some confidence after having
Hmm.
none for so long. Have a second chance." And
Yeah, he's
he's
wondering, did her parents know? If I figured it out, surely others are going to be figuring it out with the eyes of the nation upon Brockton base. And he's kind of got a point. We know that he's right, but he's spitballing. It seems like he thinks he's about 99% right. So the
yeah,
following day, there's supposed to be school opening up for kids at the high school. Yeah, he's gonna go, and he's wondering aloud, is she gonna go? Would she go? And in her shoes, he'd do it in a heartbeat. And
yeah, but
go ahead.
we know. Well, I feel like I know she's not going back to school ever again. So
She's done for, huh? Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, she's way outgrown high school.
yeah.
She's been through not only the school of hard knocks, but also graduate, postgraduate,
Mm-hmm.
postdoc. So it's like, yeah, high school is
Yeah,
way in the rearview mirror.
yeah. That moves us on to the final section we're going to cover for Arc 19, which is Interlude 19. And this was something. Wow. We see what made Emma. And
Hmm.
let's see here. I don't want to come off as I don't want to say that this is like some of Wildbow's best writing in the story, but this is really well done. I mean, you feel this girl's terror when the ABB corner her and her dad, you just absolutely feel it.
For sure. Yeah. And I totally expected there'd be some kind of trigger event, and that's what
Yeah.
kind of paired her up and got her to get away from Taylor. But, in a sense, any super trauma like that is going to be a trigger event. Maybe you don't become a parahuman, but it's going to warp you in some way. It's going to
Hmm.
change your outlook. And in the midst of this person shows up and starts trying to kind of help but not help. And
So
it's
before we get to there, so the scene starts off with her and her dad chilling. They're driving to from point A to point B, and he makes a wrong turn down an alley or something down a side street, and they get trapped by members of the ABB. Prior to that, she's on the cell phone, talking to Taylor. I like that mood setting between the two of them. They're friends, they're buds. Taylor's at camp. Okay, maybe in this dynamic, in this relationship, maybe Taylor is the little less mature one, but they're buds, you get that sense, even in that brief few moments before everything begins to go south. You get that feeling there.
definitely, yeah, they seem well connected. Yeah, different side of the tracks, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely feeling like they're compatible and hoping to see each other when she gets back from camp. So definitely a friendship going on there. And that's what we heard from Taylor too, but it's good to see it from the other side and have it confirmed that it wasn't fake from the beginning.
I do like your use of the phrase trigger event, and not necessarily being as it's applied here for superpowers, because I did not consider that. Yeah, this event was a trigger event for Emma, as you pointed out. This completely changed the trajectory of her friendship with Taylor and her outlook on life, I'm sure. Well, yeah, we get that. Her outlook on life even changed as she develops this friendship with Sophia, and they take this dark and abusive turn toward Taylor. And throughout this interlude, Emma keeps saying to herself, fake it till you make it. You know,
Mm.
I'm making this turn, and I really mean it. I really mean it.
And Sophia really kind of points it out later on, where she's talking about there's two kinds of people, there's the people that fight back and then there's the victims, predator and prey.
Yeah.
And you get a chance to choose, and prey is the wrong answer. um,
Yeah.
it's when you go through a trauma like that, there's that definite thing that, I never want that to happen again. I don't know if I ever shared the story with you, but back in middle school, I just talked the blue streak. I talked all the time. And I was on the bus coming back from a basketball tournament with the team, and was just really excited because we'd won the championship, which was
Mm-hmm.
totally unexpected. And I was just rambling on and on. And somebody said, well, you just shut up. You just talk way too much. And that just kind of crushed me.
Mm.
And so for like, I want to say like decades, I almost never talked in a vehicle.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was just like, I would just drive, even if there were people in the car, I would just be quiet the whole time until somebody said something. And it wasn't at first, it was very much a decision, but it
Mm-hmm.
just became me. I was just like, I'm not going to be the one that says somebody tells to shut up because I'm talking too much. And so I went totally the opposite way. And that's kind of how I pictured with Emma. It's just like, well, I never want to be somebody who's not the predator.
Right.
I want to be the predator. And the only way I can make sure I'm not the prey is that I am preying on others. And oh, look, Taylor's right here. That's a good victim waiting to happen.
And throughout this interlude, Wildbow has Emma see those moments of as what she perceives weakness in herself or doubt. Like that time when that moment when Taylor had come back from summer camp and was coming over to see Emma after this tragic incident. And at this point, Emma and Sophia are hanging out. Taylor's coming over. She tries to leave, tries to avoid Taylor. And at that moment, she's thinking to herself how easy it would be when they're face to face, how easy it would be to accept Taylor's friendship and support and to open up to her about what happened. But the other side of that moment is Sophia standing there smirking and being all judgy face about you hung out with this girl kind of thing. We get moments of like that throughout this interlude. And I like that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's all about trying to get past the trauma. And Emma was just not cleaning herself up, not eating, not going out, which is totally understandable after what she went through,
Sure.
and not willing to get the help or that it, and so but when we're left in our head like that, then we have to try to come up with something. And then inadvertently, Taylor says the wrong thing. She says, "I love the haircut."
Mm-hmm.
And the haircut is because of what happened. And so Taylor is kind of accidentally saying, "I like what happened to you,"
Yeah.
even though that's not what she meant at all. Through this weird twisted filter that Emma's got going on, that's how she interprets it. And so she does a fake smile and she just says, "Go home. I didn't ask you to come over." And it's kind of like, well, what the heck happened?
Right.
And lots of times people can't talk about the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
They can't, they don't want to go there. There's this feeling of, if I go back into that, I'm never coming back out again. And so she's just like, "You remind me of the stuff before this happened, and I don't want to try to have to think through that again. So I need you to go away."
Yeah. And then as we go through this interlude, we get various scenes where we do get the scene where Emma leaves
Dump the stuff
home.
on her.
What's that?
Oh, I was going to say when they dump the sodas on her and stuff, but
Yeah, there's that. We do get the scene where Emma had actually left the house to go find.
Sophia and patch her up.
Right. There's that one. And the scene where later on, where her dad is basically standing up for Shadow Stalker and her being accepted as a probationary member of the wards. So the story advances. We get these moments, and all the while, fake it until I make it, fake it until I make it. Ignore this thing that Taylor reminds me of, and how can I prove to myself I'm this different person by abusing Taylor, which goes to the point that you were making earlier. Things spring forward, and we see where Shadow Stalker. This is post where the scene where the Undersiders captured Shadow Stalker, and she's in lockup. She's in juvie, having broken her probation, and Emma's there visiting her.
Yeah, and now the tables are turned. Sophia's almost trying to kick Emma to the curb,
Mm-hmm.
and is just saying, "Hey, the everything ends 2 years, so who cares? And who cares if things are messed up?
Right.
Whatever. I'm trying to make conversation." And then, "Oh, you're doing a crappy job of it." And it's a little, it's like Emma's getting karma's coming back around. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, you didn't want to think about what things were before. And now I'm in juvie locked up and the world ends in 2 years. I don't want to think about what could have been either. So go away.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like Emma's going to be coming by anytime soon to visit her soon to be former best friend. I guess. And then as we're moving toward the very end of the interlude, we get the scene where they're returning to Brockton Bay, and Emma asks her dad to swing by the Hebert's house under the guise of, yeah, it'll kind of help me center myself to see how things are. This is a familiar sight. So if you don't mind, maybe go by their house. And as luck would have it, Taylor and her dad are outside. They're unloading the car. They're laughing. They seem to be enjoying each other's company from what we can tell. And then we get that eerie moment where Taylor turns around, stops what she's doing. She's carrying the box, stops what she's doing, turns around, sees them, and then just kind of, watches them drive by slowly.
Yeah. She's still got her sensor network
Of
deployed.
course.
Yeah, and so she knows exactly who's coming and going and is able to check everything out. And she starts kind of wondering, did I make the wrong choice by
Mm-hmm.
trying to steal myself, trying to fake it till I make it? And yeah, she's unsettled.
Yeah, because she sees how different Taylor is. And what does it say here? Yeah, it surprised Emma all the little clues coming together to point to one fact that Taylor had stayed. She stayed and she'd come out of it okay. And then she talks about making the observation about the Taylor's, the Heber's home and the nice
Mhm.
car. And yeah, it unsettled her and she couldn't put a finger on why. Yeah, maybe you chose poorly there, Emma. Maybe you should have accepted the friendship that Taylor would have given you. Well, then again, if that would have happened, then the trio of mean girls wouldn't have shoved Taylor into a locker, and we wouldn't have Queen Bee now, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's again that gets into the whole passenger thing and who gets
Mm-hmm.
picked and that kind of thing. It's if Taylor was meant to be Skitter all along, then the
Mm.
trigger event would have happened somehow, I'm thinking. But yeah, it really points out how when we try to make ourselves tough by pushing others away,
Mm-hmm.
that tends to have the opposite effect. The only way to survive the fire is by going through the fire, not by turning your back on it and trying to pretend it's not there. Emma turned her back. She didn't want to process through things, and so she's got this kind of fake shell that she has to keep propping up. And Taylor didn't have a fun time with it, but she pushed through it,
Yeah.
and she's as it says at the end here, the survivors wind up being the strongest ones of all.
Yep. And that brings us into the end of Arc 19. Bud, why don't you give me your overall impressions of this arc?
This arc was chock full of wild stuff. I mean, it was all over the place. There was, amazing fighting scenes. There were great insights to be had in the interludes, and really started to open up some of the foundational ideas of what's going on with the parallel universes or parallel Earths and
Mm-hmm.
the passengers. And so this was a really neat one. And I enjoyed all of it except for the Parahumans Online.
Not a fan, huh?
Not a fan.
Not a fan. All right. All right. And now it's time for Andy to announce his choice for key character of the arc. Whether hero or villain, cape or civilian, Andy will identify the character that stood out to him, whether it's for good or ill. Andy, who's your selection and why?
Well, this was a super tough one. This is like when the dessert tray comes by at the really nice restaurant, and you're just like, can I pick a bunch of them? Do I have to just take one? I mean, I loved Weld. He showed up a lot, and the
Mm-hmm.
way he was able to have the unique ways of being able to get the people out of Echidna. That was pretty amazing. Echidna herself, Noelle, and the way everything revolved around her. That was amazing. Tecton, even at times,
Yeah.
the way he was doing stuff that and really using his power strategically in ways that I didn't expect would work. That was pretty cool. Even Scrub, the guy didn't say a word. It looked like his power was pretty much useless,
Mm-hmm.
but really became a key thing at the end. And then there's Tattletale. She seemed to be able to pull in all these different threads and really be able to get things going and kind of opened up the can of worms when started talking about Cauldron and that kind of thing. And then Ignis Fatuus, um,
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
the way he revealed everything for real, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this person really knows what they're talking about." So hold on, and that was a real watershed moment. But in the end, for me, and I can't leave out Sundancer and her finally
Oh,
getting
yeah,
to
yeah.
have the barbecue I've been waiting for.
Oh,
But
yeah.
um, but in the end, for me, the key character of the arc was Labyrinth. You know, she was kind of an enigma. There was moments where she was lucid and able to do things, and then there were other times when she was lost somewhere, and it was hard to know what was going on, and it kind of tugged on my heartstrings that she wasn't able to control things or be as present,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really tough on her, and to see her kind of blossom and seem to really start to grasp and come out into the light, if you will, or be able to shake off the shackles and be able to say, oh, wait a minute, okay, now this is starting to make sense. That the way Wildbow really wrote that, and then the
Mm-hmm.
way she was able to find the places and set things up so that the travelers could get home, and then they so that there was also this portal to a world that was yeah, nobody living on it, so it was safe to leave it open. I think that's going to be a key thing going forward, and who knows, Labyrinth herself might be a key going forward as well. So Labyrinth is my choice for key character of the arc.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, folks, with that, we are going to be heading out for now. Thanks everyone for joining us. I want to take a moment and say Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year to you all. We really appreciate you being here with us each and every episode. We can't thank you enough. So please, please stay safe driving around in that ice and snow out there if you live in the kind of climes, because we really want to make sure you're back here with us when we return next year. So until next time, take care.
Yeah, just to echo what Keith says, happy holidays, everybody. Pray you have a blessed time with your families and friends. Yeah, this is going to be a nice break for us as well, but we really look forward to you being along for the ride in 2024. So come back and listen again then. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us in this podcast. We hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe. If not, thanks for stopping by anyway, and we'll hope you'll return. Music is by the band YYNOT from their self-titled debut CD. You can find more in the link down below. Catch you later.